special one-on-one conversation with two experts in the field of language for children. This session is called Supporting Every Sound, Helping Your Child Thrive in Their Speech and Language Journey.
Yeah, so please help us welcome Morgan Estes and our moderator, Laura Horne, Smile Train's Director of Education and Training, Global Speech and Hearing Lead. Come on up.
All righty, here we are.
Yes, here we are.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you enjoyed your discussion sessions. I will quickly introduce myself. My name is Sara Horne. I am Smile Train's Education and Training Director, as well as our Global Speech and Hearing Lead. And I'm also a speech language pathologist myself. I actually worked on the cleft and craniofacial team at Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital in South Florida, just a couple of hours south of here for a bit. And I'm very excited to be here today with our special guest, Morgan. I'll let her introduce herself.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Morgan Estes. First and foremost, I am mom to two amazing kiddos. My oldest son is 8, Caden. He is non-cleft affected. And then my daughter, Maddie Kate, was born with a unilateral left cleft lip and palate, and she turns 3 today. So... Yes, it was very fitting that she was born in the month of July, right, for Cleft Awareness Month. But yeah, so I am a speech language pathologist. I worked right out of graduate school in skilled nursing facilities, so with more of the elderly population that experience strokes and swallowing difficulties. And then I branched into academia. I was a clinical supervisor at a local Birmingham University for about 5 years, worked in our university clinic, and then got a wild hair and decided I'm gonna go get my doctorate degree. So a lot of gray hairs later and a lot of wrinkles later, I now teach graduate SLP students in an online program. So it's crazy how it's kind of come, full circle with being an SLP and then being a mom of a cleft affected child.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Well, we'll dive right in. Okay. I have a couple of questions, and then we'll have time for questions and answers at the end as well. So when it comes to cleft and speech, every child's journey can look very different. How did you personally approach the early stages of speech therapy, both professionally and personally as a cleft parent?
Yeah. So I've been a speech pathologist for 12, 13 years now, and I thought I knew going into it why I was wanting to become an SLP. There's my sweet family up there. But it wasn't until 3.5 years ago where I really realized why I became an SLP, and it was for my daughter. And professionally, I would say that I knew about 50% of kiddos born with a cleft would need some type of speech services. So I just didn't know what 50% Maddie Kate was gonna fall in. So I really wanted to get ahead of it, right, and get speech services early, because I'm a big believer in prevention since I didn't know. And so we had speech services for about a year. It was about a month after her palate repair, or palate closure, that we started services, and she graduated from speech about a year later and is doing great. And then, personally, I think wearing that mom hat first and foremost. So when I remember our first cleft appointment with the cleft team after Maddie Kate was born, and the SLP was like, I don't need to tell you anything. You already know all this. I said, oh, no. Right now, I'm mom. Anything I learned in graduate school, anything I thought I knew has gone out of my head. So talk to me as a mom. So it's been a journey, and it's been interesting to see how the profession and the personal life have come together, truly.
Absolutely, and those early services are so crucial. So,
yes.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some common myths or misconceptions you hear from families who are starting or just getting started on their cleft speech journey, and how do you usually guide them through that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people in general are just unaware that it's a lifelong journey. I know many of the other speakers have talked about that today, that it's not just a one and done, fix all. By the time they're 18, it's over with. So I think that's a big common misconception. And even I had my own misconceptions too as a graduate student, because I thought, well, if you were born with a cleft, that was going to automatically mean you needed speech services, and that's not true. About 50% is the case. So just miscommunication, I think, and myths, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think social media and YouTube can be really positive, but also important to, be close with your providers and be able to ask questions and, have that open communication with them to make sure that everything you're seeing and taking in is true, and every patient and every child is different too. So
Right.
That's a key part. Wonderful. As you and many in this room know, speech progress can sometimes be slow or frustrating. Can you share a moment, either as a professional or as a mom, when you celebrated a speech or language milestone that felt especially meaningful to you and your family?
So looking back at all of Maddie Kate's previous early intervention progress notes and seeing where we started with the baby signs and then where we've gotten to, which now she's speaking in full sentences and very much tells us what she wants when she wants it. We're in every definition of three-nager stage, so those of you that have met her know. But yeah, I think, and I've told my graduate SLP students this too, that looking back, you can see all of the progress, where when you're in the day-to-day, it's hard to see that. But looking back, it kind of, shows you where you've come. And that's been really helpful for me as a therapist and also as a mom.
Absolutely. And I know with my own patients, when I was practicing, I would have parents come in and feel similarly, I don't know, it just feels like I'm not seeing that much progress. We're working at home and we're working. He doesn't want to do speech therapy. He doesn't want to practice at home. But then they see the videos of their child from 6 months, 12 months ago of how they sounded, and they are like, wow, yes, I don't, you said you're in the day-to-day, you don't see the change, but I always encourage my parents to look back at videos of their child from a bit ago so they can appreciate the progress, because the parents are such an active part in their child's speech therapy and their child's speech progress that I think they need to acknowledge their own work too, as I'm sure that you're aware of as well. Wonderful. On the topic of advocacy, which has been something we've been talking a lot about today, advocating for your child's speech needs can sometimes feel overwhelming. What advice would you give to parents who might be unsure how to speak up or how to partner with their child's speech pathologist or larger cleft care team?
I would say that you are the expert on your child. Everybody else is a consultant. That has stuck with me for a long time now. And if we don't advocate, then who will? So, and then giving them the tools as they grow, where then they can advocate for themselves, but we're the models, right? So they learn from us, they see us, they hear us. So being that voice. And I would also say to get in a group, whether that be a Facebook cleft support group or whatever that looks like, is super important. We're not meant to do life alone. We're meant to be in relationship with each other. And a very wise person once told me that the best thing you can hear as a human is, oh my gosh, you too, I thought I was the only one. And I think that speaks across many different situations. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's a great quote. And I think, at least as with my background in speech experience, I would say, I might venture to say that a speech therapist out of many different medical providers would recognize more so that every child and every patient is so different. I know that every patient that I treat, they might have the same diagnosis on the paper, but the same treatment strategies, the same exercises, they don't work for every patient.
Right.
And I'm sitting here in my office yelling over to the next speech pathologist saying, hey, what did you do with this kid today? Because this really wasn't working. So let's brainstorm, how can we figure out something for this specific patient. So I do think speech pathologists may have a unique perspective into that, just having that kind of weekly recurring sessions and having to keep your child engaged rather than just seeing them once per year and kind of visiting with them, but having to see them every week and develop that relationship and really keep them engaged and excited about the work that's being done in the speech room. Awesome. Well, is there anything else you wanted to touch on or share with our audience? We have a little bit more time before we move into Q&A. If there's any personal stories or anything you want to share, please.
Yes, so several things. I would say when we first found out about Maddie Kate, that she was going to be born with a cleft, it was shocking. We weren't expecting it, right? And I remember those early days just wondering, will I ever be able to talk about this without crying? And I was hopeful, but it was a really tough season. And to see how, just the journeys life takes you on, and where you think, okay, I'm not qualified to do this. Why me? Our paths are guided, and this is, now I'm here today talking to you all about it, and I talk to my graduate students all the time about it, and just advocating and educating, because I do feel like in the speech pathology world, we are lacking. We were talking at lunch about this, lacking in cleft education. And that's a passion of mine now, to educate the next generation of SLPs on the importance of it, how common it actually is. And 1 in 700, and it's associated with over 400 different types of syndromes that as SLPs we work with a lot. So improving cleft care in the graduate level, I think is super important, and that's what I'm working on, and researching too, wanting to do more research in the education that families receive when they find out about their child that will be born with a cleft. Did they have any referrals to a speech pathologist? Did they have education on feeding, techniques, things like that? So also a big passion project of mine. I would also say to celebrate the small wins, no matter how small, because they add up over time. I tell my students that all the time, in their graduate school journey. I'm like, I know this seems like so difficult, and it is difficult, but just celebrate the small wins, because they lead to big gains. And then I would also say to families, just share your progress and share, as many other people have said today, post about it. Take all the pictures you can. Speak up, speak out. Your voice matters, your words matter, and just be advocates and educators. We're all educators. We all have our circle. Even on the flight over, we're from Birmingham, Central Alabama, and we ran into a couple that was traveling to Greece, and they were like, "Oh, where are y'all headed?" And I said, "Well, we're going to Orlando. We're going to a couple theme parks, and we're also going to ClefCon." They're like, "Oh, what's ClefCon?" So I told them about it, and they said, "Oh, let me find you on Facebook. I want to follow your cleft journey. We don't know much about it." So now we're Facebook friends, and they've been liking all the ClefCon posts. So you have a sphere of influence, and you don't know how many people that you could reach out to that knows 5 other people, or you just never know. So the amount of people who've reached out to me, and I had no idea that they had a cleft palate, or their grandmother was 95 years old and born with cleft lip and palate. So, yeah, I know I kind of went off on a tangent there,
No,
but
that's fantastic. No, I think we're just sharing here, and that's wonderful. And one thing that I guess on the advocacy side that you had mentioned in terms of just speaking up, I think it's crucial, at least from my side, kind of working on a cleft and craniofacial team. If you can get your speech pathologist in touch with your local cleft team, I know that our cleft specialized speech pathologists on the team always were there available to talk to the school's speech pathologist, or if at a private clinic, and be able to kind of like I said, brainstorm, talk through what's working, give suggestions. So if I guess from an advice standpoint, I would definitely say don't be afraid to give the information of your cleft team speech pathologist to your speech pathologist, and just make sure that everybody's connected and that continuity of care is there. But thank you so much. We're going to move on to our next session, but thank you.